Thank you. Speaking from the Shehu Musa Yaradua Center in Abuja, where the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, the main opposition party in the just concluded 2019 presidential elections, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, has just been briefing the media on the position of his party and of he as a candidate about these elections. Basically, his position is that they reject the results and the figures. According to Alhaji Abubakar, they have the real figures and that it will take time, but he's urging the supporters of the party to keep calm.
For him, he said, res ipsa loquitur. The facts,
that's it. The facts speak for themselves.
For you, is that what it was? Let's ask your thoughts.
My take on this, two reasons why I would ask them to proceed. One, our president himself has been at the receiving end of such allegations, and he went to the court. So, yes, so PDP can, pursue this. One. Two, it's also good for us as a people to rest this matter. Because, yes, the president has said that the APC should not, what's the word he used? Not gloat over this. But I think that there is there's a sense of, there's this, you are not feeling that something great has happened. You know what I mean? So even for them as APC, I think that the court pronouncement will either really give them, the sense of we won. So for those two reasons, I think it's good. Let the PDP, go to the court if they want to, and let the courts be the final arbiter.
Mr. Sherry.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We've had this election, the presidential election. There are also lessons to learn because so many things went wrong in different places. For instance, nobody can deny the incident in Okota in Lagos. Nobody can deny what happened in Anambra. We've had a returning officer claiming that he was made to declare the result under duress, the particular person under duress in Imo State. So there are quite issues in different parts of the country. Atiku is also raising issues around what seems to be statistically impossible, which is about more people voting in war-ravaged areas than in peaceful areas. So these are issues, according to Mr. Atiku Abubakar. The courts are there, to look at those issues impartially, look at whether there are serious infractions that would substantially mar the election. If there are serious infractions that will affect the credibility of the election, of course, there will be issue. Atiku made clear, he tried to establish the fact that the election was not free and fair, and therefore cannot be credible. That's the summary of what Atiku said.
Yes. Mr. Shomi, staying with that, something you said about the numbers, the more voter turnout in war-ravaged areas,
yes.
Even as the PDP's candidate put it. Do you think it's plausible, that observation, how you have more voters in war-torn areas than you have in peaceful areas?
Well, it's something which is not impossible, but is not conceivable. It's probably strange in reality because it does not go. It runs against the currency of what happens in any normal situation. And when you look at the fact that I read Atiku's statement, the one he issued, he also alluded to one thing that. 50% of the people that voted, that the results returned showed that 50% showed 50% of the people voting in Akwa Ibom in this election, he had 50% of the people voting less or something. He was making a point about suppression of votes in areas where PDP is very strong. The fact of the matter is these are serious allegations which needs to be examined. No one else can say whether it is true or not. It is only a judge. It is only the courts that can look at the allegations, whether they substantially you know, they would affect the credibility of the election. It's not that there are no allegations. Don't forget that. The issue is whether it will substantially mar the credibility of that election. Is the election free and fair? He also complained about militarization. You know, he complained about that, which he was not happy about. But at the end of the day, we've had the election. Somebody has been declared as the winner. It is now left for the lawyers
courts. But truthfully, the courts, how successful have they helped our political reforms in the past and the process, which is the election, raising all of this alleged irregularities and the many issues?
We dare not begin to think that even the courts would not be able to deliver. Otherwise, we're a step away from the jungle. So we must therefore hope, and I'm sure that the judges themselves might be listening to us. We must hope that they would uphold the tenets of the law. Otherwise, we are in trouble. The only reason why people would restrain themselves is because there's the hope that if you present the facts, the judges would make the right judgment calls. If we begin to question that, then it's better imagined.
Now, having said that much, I want to, I know that before we, yes, because before we went to that, the press conference, we were making, we're setting, while this winds its way through the established process.
Governance must still continue.
That's it. And therefore, the issue of setting an agenda still remains important. And we were talking about
infrastructure,
that's it, this big ticket. He mentioned ownership. He talked about maintenance. You've both already agreed that we have maintenance issues, and people sometimes shudder when Mr. Shomi was talking about nuclear power plants. I mean, again, we are talking about safety records and maintenance and then nuclear power plants in the same sentence, maybe. But be that as it may, as it is now, should we continue along those lines, the airports and so on and all of that? And if so, towards what end? To be specific. You were on that before we had to.
Yes, I think we should continue because, like I said, what makes the so-called developed countries developed, apart from the human capital development, is the infrastructure. So yes, we should continue because, I mean, look at the few areas where we seem to have gotten things right and see how much improvement and how much, I mean, look at the telephones, for example. They have literally changed our lives, all right? So imagine if, I mean, I begin to hear things like you can live in Ibadan and work in Lagos. You know what I mean? Because you can, get on the train at 7 a.m. and you can be in your office in Marina by 9:30. So imagine what that would do to rent in Lagos, for example. Imagine what that would do to quality of life, for example. So it really means that no longer do you need to spend 5 hours getting, and home this time is no longer, is somewhere in Jaro in Ibadan. So that's just an idea of what will happen if we get these things right. Okay, so I would say yes, we must continue. Talking about ownership and maintenance, there must be a way in which the communities where these infrastructures would be sited have a sense of ownership, make them stakeholders. Now, how would you do that? Each infrastructure, you have to look at each one, on a case-by-case basis, and then you then must think around how can we give ownership to the people? How can they see that this thing is in our interest if it's working well? All right, so those are the kind of things that, I think we need to do. So I would say, yes, we must continue. If possible, do much more than they have promised to do, because the more infrastructure, then the economy, the economic activities, pick up, taxes are paid, and that's how, the engine kind of, just...
Okay, but I want to ask, that issue of ownership, Mr. Shaw, maybe you come in here. How do you get the people to own this infrastructure? How do you get them to buy into it? Someone was here and gave an example of Singapore where what the leader did was to give the people houses. So when he says, go and fight for Singapore, they know they are fighting for their houses. So in the case of Nigeria, how do you get the people to buy into this infrastructure?
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately,
to own it.
To own it. Unfortunately, we've stopped investing in social programs, that are more meaningful to the people in the country. You only need to go back into history and look at all those houses, in front of the National Stadium and see what was done when Awolowo was in power in the 60s when we had the confederal arrangement. People took ownership of it. Today, they're still living there. We've not been investing in mass housing. Most of the houses being built today are beyond the reach of common people, and consequently, they don't even see it as an achievement by any government because it has no impact on their life. So the major issue is how would government projects impact on people's life? For instance, look at the railway. The railway is quite very, very important because if you look at all the roads, the haulage trucks are really messing up all the roads, increasing the cost of maintaining those roads. If you go to places like Surulere, somewhere from Surulere down to Apapa, it's a nightmare. So once you get the rail right, you will be able to move goods from one part of the country to the other. Secondly, the cost of transporting goods will now be cheaper, and that will affect, the net cost of goods in the market because transporting goods through haulage is more expensive than, sending them through rail. So people will gain from that, and then we'll see the importance of the railway. Apart from bringing down the cost of moving people from one place to the other, like my colleague correctly said, you can now live in Abeokuta and work in Lagos with the railway project. That will reduce the pressure on social housing needs in Lagos because houses in Ogun State will be cheaper. Well, they are relatively cheaper compared to Lagos. Look at the Mambila Power Project. Many people will take ownership of it because it's not only about the power project, supplying power into the national grid. If you don't build industries around the area, if you don't provide houses for people living in those areas, if they cannot connect, they cannot get power, and you are pumping out power from Mambila project, to the national grid, and you are not providing power in the neighboring villages, they will not be able to claim ownership. So government needs to ensure that while we're doing that, we are also able to connect the local communities, they have access to that power. Otherwise, they will not take ownership of it. But those projects are laudable projects. There are things we need to continue.
We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, I want to talk about the cost of all this. Many of these projects are being financed with loans. So that also brings up the question of sustainability and viability of it. But that will be after this. Please stay.